So we were going to talk a little bit about, I guess, growing up in our cities. I don't know if you wanted to go first. You wanted me to go first.
I mean, let's hear about Boston first, because I'm always curious.
Yeah.
Like just for me, because I talk about Chicago like all the time. I'm like a name dropping motherfucker when it comes to Chicago. But I'd like to hear your perspective for sure.
Yeah, man. Growing up in Boston, man, I think that you have to grind. It's a very like unforgiving place because it's like if you don't do what you have to do, you won't survive. So from a young age, I mean, luckily, I had both parents, but there's a lot of expected of you to be educated, to be somebody who is respectable in society, somebody who has thick skin, who can, deal with a lot because, there's a lot of hatred. But yeah, I would say is a lot of pressure to be somebody, with all the colleges, with all the expectations and big things with the educational system there. It's like you are pressured at a young age to be somebody, and being not going the education route is looked down upon. But at the same time, it's very much a blue collar city where, if you're a construction worker, a tea worker, it's like that's kind of acceptable too. But that's not the life you really want to live. Like that's a rough life. To be like a construction worker in Boston in the winter, it's brutal. To be a tea worker is brutal. It's like it's not a very happy place, and not somewhere that you get a lot of respect if you're not, a white collar worker or living in the North End or whatever. But yeah, I'll say for me at least, growing up, it was a lot of pressure to be something and to excel in school, to go to college, to basically have a full-time job, the suburban living with a house and kids and whatnot, and anything beyond that was looked down upon. So if you want to do music, rap music is not a big thing here or back in Boston. Yeah, it's like it was very hard, especially like for me. I didn't want to be a rapper, but I felt like I could still have made it in another city because I was just grinding so hard for it. Me and Dan were like grinding every day, going to the studio, making really good music. Like, not to toot my own horn, but I felt like we got to a point where we put out sonically really good music. We had our own style, we had our own sound from Boston, and nobody wanted to listen. Like, we would go to open mics, we would try to hit up radio stations. There's no labels out here, so it's really a hard place to come up from. And you're seeing a lot of new artists nowadays coming up, but they're older. Like, Jordan Lucas is a big guy from Boston coming up. Bia, I think, is coming up as well. She's from Medford. And those are really the two I can think of off the head. I mean, besides Benzino, I think he was from Roxbury or something. But yeah, it's a very like stick to your, put your head down, work, grind, and also a very like you have to be careful. I feel like a lot of times it looks like it's a very nice place in some areas, but that can change really quick. And there's still a lot of poverty. It's very gentrified. If you go down one street, you can end up in, the ghetto and that whole thing. And then the other side, you can end up in like a really nice neighborhood. Like a perfect example is Milton and Mattapan. You're in Milton, which is one of the most affluent neighborhoods, very nice. You walk down the street and you're in an intersection in Mattapan, and it's probably one of the worst neighborhoods, a lot of poverty. So it's definitely somewhere you have to have thick skin. You have to be somebody who is determined to make it. And if you're not, you're going to be on the street, and you're going to be addicted to drugs, and you're going to be in a homeless shelter because there's no other way to go about it. There's no other way to survive. It costs too much to live there. The weather is horrible. So if you're planning on living on the street, you're not going to survive very long if you don't have a plan. The drivers, I'll say one thing, like Boston, if you can drive in Boston, you can drive anywhere, because it's people do not people are good drivers, I'll say that, but it's like they're good in a different way from the way you should drive. You know what I'm saying? Like, they know how to drive. They're not going to run into you, but they're very aggressive. So yeah, so I mean, Boston, I always loved Boston. I just think it made me the type of person I am today, where it's like, you always have to have a backup. You always have to have a goal in mind. And if you don't, like, people aren't going to accept you, and you're going to look at you like you're lazy and you're not, you know, you're not the person you should be. And it's sad. There's a lot. One thing with Boston too is a lot of homelessness growing up that I saw. And I think that's something that really stuck with me, because I felt like, even though people were like, oh, well, go to a homeless shelter and whatever, a lot of these people, you know, they don't want to go to a homeless shelter. They don't want to deal with that life. And there's no other outlet or place for them to go. And it's like they end up in the streets. A lot of them die. I've heard stories of people dying in the winter from the cold. You know, people getting stabbed on the street, you know, people overdosing on the street. And when I was a kid growing up, I didn't really understand why that was happening. I still think it's kind of dumb that in America we have this problem going on. And I think it shouldn't be a problem, but it's very apparent there. And something that I wish would change there. And from what I've seen, it's kind of changed from when I was a kid, but it's still kind of a problem, I think. And also a big opiate addiction problem over there as well. It's just somewhere that a lot of people are using heroin and pills, and you'll see the needles on the floor and stuff like that. But a great city, a very proud city. They're very proud of where they're from. Some people never leave there. They don't know why people leave there. They don't understand you if you're like, oh, I'll go somewhere else. They're like, but why? You know, it's like they just, to them, that's all they know. And it's like, you know, it really makes me proud to be from there, because it's like people, they have a certain pride, you know, Boston pride, Boston strong. And it has its history. So yeah, that's all I'll say about Boston.
Yeah, no, and it's, I think something that's interesting too from an outside perspective is like, Boston's a young city, and not necessarily its history, because it has a lot of history obviously, but I think it's a young city in regards to, like, you know, again, man, there's only 600,000 people in the state when there's no students. I don't think people really respect that jump, because it's 2.6 million people when there's students. So I don't think people really realize, like, man, it is a very young city. And like, even at, you know, for us as college students, we were in Fenway, right? And, you know, it's for lack of a better term, I'm not trying to age myself, but it's popping out there. You know, there's always stuff to do in Boston. So it's a cool place. If you haven't been to Boston, I don't know why you haven't been there. You're probably from like North Dakota or something. Not knocking North Dakota, but you might want to get out of there. But no, check out Boston for sure. It's definitely a decent place.
It has its character. It's like, there's a lot of character to it. There's a lot of little.
It does.
The neighborhoods too is, I'll say that too. Every neighborhood has its own thing, and that's kind of cool about it. Is it's almost like a Game of Thrones. It's like different, like. You go one place and it's different from this place, and it's different from that place.
Kingdoms, like, it's like mad different. It is. No, that's true, man. Like even like I remember when I was living on the border of Dorchester and Roxbury, I think. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, man, every day was such a. First of all, I felt like home. So in that regard, if you're from Chicago and you're looking to move out to Massachusetts, and you're not scared of urban environments, because some people and whatever this sound, I guess that sounds bad if I don't explain. So let me explain. There's a lot of affluent, predominantly white people in Massachusetts, and I know that when I was living here, pretty much everything that I heard was people kind of like scoffing at me living in Dorchester and Roxbury. So you know, for me, coming from an urban spot, I think it's home to me. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, I feel really comfortable here. I really love the people, the culture that's there, the food, right? I mean, you got to shout out the food, because I don't think people give enough respect to the food in Boston sometimes, in these smaller neighborhoods that are considered more dangerous. I'm like, I'll get stabbed over an empanada. That's fine. I'm cool with that. Like, in Chicago, you get stabbed for less. So for me, I'm like, I'll take that travel over somewhere. So, but no, man, it's a beautiful place, and I think that if you're into like, if big cities are too daunting, Boston's a beautiful place to be. You know, like if New York is way too much, because it is, or Chicago's too big because it is, or again, like in the West, right? Like if LA is not your scene, just try the East Coast. I think you'll find that Boston is a good little. It's like it's the best of a township, like the community feel of a township with the perks of a city. You know, that's kind of how I've always looked at it. So definitely, man. No, that's dope. Chicago, yeah, man. Yeah, growing up in Chicago was an experience. So for me, I grew up in a one-parent household. Not to say that my dad wasn't around, but he was doing some stuff. So you know, shout out to my pops doing his thing. But yeah, no. So I was raised with my mom, my mom in the house, and then my older brother who he has a different dad, and then me and my sister share the same dad. So I had 3 siblings. Or 2 siblings rather. I keep trying to say 3. We don't know. Pops was out here doing stuff.
3 pending.
For real, get in trouble. That would be careful. But no, man. Yeah, Chicago. I would say it's like, I don't want to say it's blue collar, but there's spots that are blue collar. I guess where I was raised is a little bit under blue collar, just because like people don't realize, man. There's a lot of Latinos in Chicago, and specifically undocumented. Immigrants, unfortunately undocumented. I think that they absolutely should be documented at this point. These people work hard as hell, man. But like in my neighborhood, man, we have so many people working for like $5 an hour and stuff. It's unfortunate. But beyond that, man, I think where I was raised specifically is Brighton Park. So if you know Chicago, Brighton Park is like wedged between a lot of like weird neighborhoods. So we're like wedged between what the hell is it called? Oh my God, these white people. It's wedged between, man, why can I not think of what this place is called? Bridgeport. There we go. Bridgeport and Back of the Yards. And if you don't know anything about Bridgeport, it's pretty much, it reminds me a lot of Boston. It's kind of like Newton a little bit, actually. Maybe not Boston so much, Newton. Where it's like, you have like not so Slim Shady characters, where it's like, it's not really like, it's not a tough place by any means, but you got people that are out here like, you know, fronting a little bit. But I know there's mad people that are gonna be like upset, like Ginger, about it. But if you're from there, you know there's like mad people that are Ginger for no reason. So it's kind of like the Southie of Chicago. But you know, and the Back of the Yards is actually, man, that Back of the Yards is a tough neighborhood. I don't think people really realize. Like when I was a kid growing up, there was like a viaduct right behind my crib. And if you're familiar with the book The Jungle, I'll put the link in the bio if Dan can't. But yeah, it's actually like talking about the neighborhood I grew up in, man. And there's a lot of factories over there. So like where I grew up was like really industrialized to the point where like the only thing that can really go there is industry, right? So like you can only put like public storage or like a company. Like there's like chip manufacturers back there and stuff like that. So like we're wedged between that, a nice neighborhood, and then on the right hand side is that Back of the Yards neighborhood, and the crime rate's pretty high there, man. But it's, again, a lot of it's gentrification and Section 8 housing as well as segregation. So when I was a kid, like the rule was right, like oh, you can't really go over that viaduct because of the neighborhood, because what was happening was like gangbangers it was a shortcut because you don't have to stop at red lights. It's basically an overpass, right? So like people would come to that neighborhood, gangbangers, and like shoot at people and then just ride back over, and they'll be in their neighborhood where cops can't really, like, they can't find them or catch them. So that's kind of just to set the stage for the layout of like where I grew up, and I consider that to be like Chicago proper, even though, you know, if you're from Chicago, I guess you could argue that the city is Chicago, but that's not where the people's heart is. So I feel like that's not true. With that being said, like, you know, for me growing up, like we grew up really poor. I grew up in poverty. My mom definitely did a great job trying to make ends meet. But with that being said, like just as an observant person, like, you know, I grew up on, and shout out to Aldi for hooking it up, but I grew up on like some 10-cent lunch meat and shit. So, you know, from that perspective, like really setting the stage to get people to understand, like there were times where I was homeless as a kid, right? And like Chicago is unforgiving too, but like the thing that I think that's the hardest about Chicago is like it's not like predicated on degree or like status. It's just like it's unforgiving, like in general. You know, like the first time I was homeless, I was 14. So like I don't know, man, that was tough. And that was like some of it was family related, some of it was some other stuff. But just tough, man. And And even then, like the place we lived right before we were homeless. So let me set the stage real quick too. So my grandma evicted us one time. Shout out to Grams. And we had to go move into an all-black neighborhood. And for anybody who doesn't know, I'm mixed, so like my mom's white, and that sounds exactly how it is. So it like definitely was awkward as hell. And like some like 12-year-old, like the first day we were living there, like pulled a gun on me and was like, "Yo, like what you is?" And I was like, "I don't know, bro. Like in the wrong place, I guess. Like I don't know what to tell you. I'm not supposed to be here."
Like
either.
I'm Josh.
No, for real. Like, and that's over by like we were living by Gage Park, which is, it's dangerous.
I've been there.
But yeah, you been there when Mary was there. Shout out to Mary, that was mad funny. She was like, "We better roll up the damn windows." I was like, "Yeah, I feel you, dog."
I was like, "Windows not gonna stop a bullet, though."
Hey, no, for real, it's like that though. Like I don't think people. That's the thing. I want to say this too. Like, if you're not from Chicago, man, please. Like, I'm not trying to talk about like race insensitively. I'm really not. But like, it's so segregated that like if I'm walking through Gage Park, everyone knows. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, I'm not supposed to be there. So like, I've gone and played basketball in Gage Park, and you better believe that people were like, "What the hell is this white kid doing over here?" Like, so, like I had people like old heads that were like, "Yo, brother, you need like to be walked home or something." Like, I don't know how to help you. I ain't never seen a white kid like you before, but like, you good? I was like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to hoop."
You never seen a white person before.
Dude, I swear to God, jaws all on the floor. I swear to you. And so like my upbringing was a little bit rougher than maybe I would have liked, but it created a lot of character because I was getting like jumped and stuff a lot as a kid. Like I got my ass beat by like 15 dudes one time, and that sucked. They stole my shoes too. That was bogus as hell. Like it's like mad fucked up bogus shit happening to me for no reason. But and like I wasn't into gangs and shit. Like I was tagging and stuff, but like I wasn't even a tagger. I was like a lookout. Like I ain't gonna front. Like I suck at art. So like my dudes were just like, shh, and I was like, "Yo, there's a cop next to us." No, that really happened one time, but that's for another time. But no, man, yeah, like I said, like it's not really blue collar just because of the way that the demographic is set up and the way that segregation is in Chicago. But like you can't, like Chicago's not Boston in the sense that like I don't need a degree to work at McDonald's in Chicago. Like the managers are usually not educated. Like they don't have a degree. It's just not the type of city. So it's like the way that people get jobs is easier, I guess. But there's a lot of hardworking people that are behind the scenes in Chicago, and I wish that they would get the credit that they deserve because unfortunately they are undocumented, and so we just don't give them shout outs, right? Like a lot of my friends and their parents, right? Like I really respect the hell out of those people because man, they raise their kids on $5 an hour and like trying to get other people's information for socials just so that like it's crazy, just people that want to pay their dues, be citizens, so it's tough in that regard, but again, like where I grew up, like Chicago, like it has some interesting spots. So like I went to 3 different high schools, one on the north side, one on the south side, and then I went to I ended up graduating from a school in the suburbs for some other reasons. But yeah, man, like it's a beautiful place. People are super prideful in Chicago because like we're really loyal to Chicago. Like I think a lot of people, because you're from Boston, right? But like the city runs through your veins. I don't know how to explain it. It's like urbanization isn't universal. So to understand like the effects of urbanization and to experience it, like we're not talking about like the stuff at Wheelock was great, but that stuff is a book. It's a book. You cannot teach what you cannot understand, right? So like at the end of the day, like Chicago is a dangerous place, but it's really beautiful, and there's just hard people because they've been hardened by a lot of what life has had to offer. So I think in that regard, like we give a bad rep to Chicago sometimes about being dangerous, but it really is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and it has the most diverse architecture for any city in North America. I don't really think people understand that either. So our buildings aren't like, it's not the same architect making these buildings. There's like 47 separate architects for the city. And that's just for the massive land, like the skyscrapers, you know what I mean? Like the ones that are bigger than a mid-rise. And that's like hugely diverse for architecture. I don't think people really understand how exclusive architecture can be.
It's a huge downtown. It's probably the biggest downtown I've been to. Like it's huge.
Right? It's why, and it's so spread out. It's so spread out. It's big. And clean. It is clean, man.
It's clean.
I wish people could, if that's the takeaway that I give to people who are trying to look to like if they're like, oh, like these are the things that I look for in a city, like look at cleanliness, because clean. You have to respect Chicago for how clean it is. given that there's, I think in Illinois total, maybe there's about 12 million people. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I might be off on those figures. But a lot of people, man, a lot of people. So to me, it's a little bit like how sometimes like New York gets portrayed, like Washington Heights. Like it's kind of like that, right? In terms of like the culture, the diversity, the beauty, the essence that makes it what it is. Just a little more spread out, so people aren't like quite literally living on top of each other unless they don't have the means to survive. Right, exactly. So I think that's a huge thing to talk about. What else, man? Like Chicago. The food. Oh my gosh, yes. So yeah, so the food. So shout out if you've never been to Chicago and have been there for the Taste of Chicago. I hate to be that guy, but like go do it. It's fun. It's in like Millennium and Grant Park, kind of like those two parks are next to each other for people who don't know. So it's kind of a similar cityscape, I guess, to like what is it, like New York proper, like New York City, where they have Central Park in the middle. We just have like Lake Michigan on the other side of the event. So while you're eating beautiful food cooked by beautiful people, you get to enjoy the lake. And I think that that's something that people don't really realize. Like Chicagoans love Lake Michigan. Like if you're from Chicago, and I swear to God, if you're from Chicago, please comment on this. Like at night, if you're going through it, if you're ever just going through it, right? Sometimes in life just isn't fair. And you're going through it, you just need to like smoke a joint and like really decompress. You're going to get in your car and drive down Lake Shore Drive. That is what you're going to do. Like that's a huge thing for me, like in my older years, because I didn't smoke when I was younger, but all my friends grew up doing that, and that makes it a really beautiful experience. But yeah,
I'll definitely say that like that lake is like, I thought that was the sea. Like it's huge.
Yeah, it really like, is, right?
It doesn't look like it's like a lake, because I remember I went there and I was like, oh, that's a sea, and you're like, no, it's a lake, and I was like, what? Because it's so big.
Yeah, and people don't like. I think that's something like when people go swimming in Chicago sometimes on vacation, they get upset because the lifeguards are like just over the top as people. They be doing too much. I'm like, y'all are not Baywatch. Relax. But with that being said, there's rogue waves and there's rip currents, right? Because it's so big. Like on these little lakes, there's no such thing as a rip tide, right? Like that's not. How is that even? It wouldn't be possible. There's not even beaches on a lot of small lakes. Versus in Chicago, man, like it's 912 feet deep, okay, at its deepest point. That's a deep lake, okay? And to put it into perspective, they have 20-foot swells, right? And again, like I said, rogue waves, right? So I'm talking those swells out in the middle of the ocean, those ones that capsize ships. We have those on Lake Michigan. Not frequently, I'll give it that, but right when there's like when there's a lot of turbulent weather in the Midwest, when there's like a lot of tornadoes and stuff like that, or climate systems that come through, weather systems rather, we definitely experienced some pretty wild conditions on the lake. So I don't think people really sometimes realize how big of a lake it really is, and not compared to like Superior or Ontario, obviously, but similar conditions with that. So but yeah, and then again, the Taste of Chicago, for anybody who doesn't know, it's basically like all of the independent vendors in Chicago who want to participate in an event. And me and Dan were talking about it a little bit before the podcast, but it's kind of set up like a farmer's market. Like there's little stands basically on the street. And again, like it's a beautiful thing, because the cool part is it's not just like a farmer's market, because that's normal, but like it's in the middle of the city. Like again, like it is in Grant Park and Millennium Park. So if you look behind you, you have the Chicago Art Museum, which is insanely gorgeous building. If you've never been there, please check it out. And then you have like the cityscape, right? The classic Chicago skyline that everyone takes pictures of. You're right there next to the Bean, right? Like you're in the tourist spot. You're like a block from the Mag Mile. So man, it's like its accessibility for that event is like, it's just incredible. And again, like Chicago, I don't know if people know this, but Chicago has the most independently owned restaurants in the country. There's some of the most like independent ownership where it's not a chain, it's not owned by a conglomerate, it's not owned by some huge company. It's just like bodega style, like little places. And I think that's something that really deserves appreciation, because that's kind of the blue collar part. Like those are like in Chicago, we don't have like blue collar construction as much. I would say like construction has halted a lot over the last 20 years because it's so urban already that like we're not trying to develop in the middle of the city anymore. So there's not as much construction, but like restaurants, man. Like that's the huge thing in Chicago is food. Like that's where all the workers are, is in food. So if you don't know, like, you know, like my favorite spot, like Nikki's in Chicago is a good spot that goes to that event. There's like this place that used to be called Donald Ducks, and then they got sued for copyright infringement. So they're called like the Hut now or something crazy. That's over in the neighborhood I grew up in. It's like very non-linear naming conventions, but great people again, man. Like I really do know the owners for these places. So like for me, it is a really cool thing to see like South Side Chicago restaurants represented on the North Side of Chicago, because people just don't realize the affluence difference, right? Like you're talking like people who make, like my mom growing up, she never made more than $30,000 a year, okay? Which in Boston, that's poverty, right? So in Chicago, she was making less than what poverty is in Boston. And it's like, that's not a lot of money if you have 3 kids. So it's definitely cool to see those restaurants out there where those people are like, they're really grinding, like you said, right? Like in similar to Boston, like it's very grinding culture. Because, you know, you got to make it by any means necessary. So yeah, man, check out the Taste of Chicago. It's usually in July, around July 4th. And if you've never seen the fireworks on the lake, yes, hit us up. We'll be there next year.
Yes,
but yeah, man. If you've never seen the fireworks in Chicago too, man, like July 4th, wild. Just be careful. Don't, you know, if there's a guy in like a trench coat, just don't stand next to him, because that happened to me before. No, for real. Yeah, there was a dude carrying a Mac 10 one time, like in his vest, about to like shoot up the crowd, and like mad SWAT people just came out of nowhere. Wild shit, bro. Like it wasn't even in the news, but I was standing next to the dude, so I was like, bro. They almost got lit up for nothing. I'm just out here trying to watch some fireworks. But yeah, no, beyond the danger, you know, if you're on the lakefront side, you might not have those problems. But yeah, man, you know, it's hard because, like, whatever, man, like, you know, you've been there. So, like, for me, like, I always stress the beauty of Chicago because, like, I see through the danger, and not in, like, like, I'm not stupid, I'm not naive, but at the same time, like, I want to bring some humanization to some of these things that we experience. Like, you know, I've had guns pulled on me, and I don't hate the kid who did it. I don't hate the people who participated in it. I just think that they didn't have better influences and they were lost. And in a city of, you know, 12 million people is easy, you know, so I don't think people really appreciate the gravity of some of what Chicago has to offer. We kind of see the negative first. So yeah, I definitely want to make that a point of emphasis. So, you know, get glocked up. No, I was just playing. But for real, concealed carry. I'm just playing again. But if you're not carrying some pepper spray, damn, like for real, that's that.
Put the guns down.
Nah, for real, man. Like that's the one thing I want to say to these youngins, dude. Like, and you West Side motherfuckers, stop shooting at each other, cause y'all know who you be. Don't be playing with me. Like on the South Side, we be fighting people. On the West Side, they be shooting at everybody. Like grandma got capped up over some groceries. Hey, for real, like it's how it is. Like it's just wild shit sometimes. But you know, but again, you know, just be safe, man. Don't wear 2 headphones. Don't be walking at 2 a.m. Don't
be street smart.
Be street smart. Don't wear red and black, or black and pretty much any other color. Just wear black.
Wear white.
Don't be on the South Side. Yeah, don't be on the surrender. Wear a surrender flag, bro. That's what you gotta let them know. Let them know what you're into with what you wear. That's how we do it in Chicago. Like when people try to figure out what I'm about, I'm wearing Adidas. Like I play basketball and I make music, so leave me alone. Just out here doing my thing, trying to help these youngins get some money.
The legal way.
Oh, man, that's absolutely. If we can help it. I'm just playing. I said any means necessary, dog.
Not really. I gotta get this money, man. It's nothing else.
No, hey, look, man. People, you know, you lived in poverty too.
Little racy line.
Shout out, man. That's what I love. Chicago, dude. It's such a fun place. Like even with the music, I just love that, man. Like,
isn't TJ Academics from Chicago? I think he is.
Ooh, I feel like treason right now for not knowing the answer to that.
Let me look it up. I feel like
he ain't shout us out or anything, but he'd be like, "You a sucker."
Oh no, look, he was born in Jamaica. Hold on, I gotta figure this out now.
Well, shout out to Jamaica.
I mean,
that's a real one for real. Thank God for him, man. Damn.
Jamaican American. Okay, now I'm intrigued. Where did this dude come from? Okay,
hey,
he went to so New York. He had trouble adjusting. Oh, so he came in 2001. Okay, so he's really from Jamaica.
Okay.
All right.
Damn.
But yeah, like the war. You know the war in Chirac, right? That series he did with Chicago.
You know what? I haven't checked that out, so I'll have to
What?
check it out. No, look, it's not my fault.
Bro.
It is though.
Bro, the war in Chirac was like my entertainment. I mean, it's fucked up because like he basically made Chicago like a reality TV show, but it was like what was really happening. Like when people get shot, like he called like Lil Reese the Grim Reaper. His like Lil Reese was like, just like he had just a notoriety about him and just some things that he did. And like, you know, like you should look back on it. I feel like you would like it because it's like you probably know the different neighborhoods. But it was when like that drill scene was really active and like people were just dying left and right, which is sad. But it kind of felt like a TV show because of just how crazy it was. Like, just
well, you know, too, during that time, like, because I know what you're talking about. Because now that you said it, like, I've never seen it, but I know what you're talking about because. What was happening was if you were from Chicago, right? Like, and a lot of my friends I still have on like my social media are from there. So you see a lot of it on Facebook, right? Like when Facebook Live happened, dude, Facebook Live in Chicago is like, first of all, it's trifling as hell, but also like people tell their life story on that damn thing. Like that's how a lot of people do not realize, like if you're not from Chicago and you go to Chicago and you get into some shit with locals, don't geotag your shit, dude, for real. Like it's just dangerous. Like I've seen a lot of real ones get shot and killed because they're like posted up on the, like, dude, I get it, post up on your block, but you can't be on your cell phone. Like, you know what I mean? Like you just have to have respect for what's going on. And I'm not saying that these dudes know the ramifications of that behavior, but like I seen a lot of it just being a youngin', right? As a kid in Chicago, like, you know, I grew up with a lot of it and just realizing like, man, to me, like the news stories are like every single one of them hits me the same way and it hurts every time. It's not like it can't be desensitized for me because my friend Chris was shot and killed. So like for me, like when people even talk about like black on black crime, like it just makes me angry. I'm like, you're talking about like proximity violence in an urban area and you don't really understand the context because you're not from there. And so it's easy to like be like, man, those are just, you know, it's Chicago, because I've heard that my whole life, right? They're like, well, it's Chicago, so you know. And I'm like, no, man, these are like little babies getting killed. Like, and it's not, you can't expect people who don't trust police to do the right thing all the time.
And also, I don't know if you can speak on this, but in Chicago, it's like if you're not part of a gang, you have no protection. You know what I'm saying? You can't be in a certain neighborhood and not be part of a gang and survive, right? Like it's like you either join them or like, you know, you're gonna get no respect. Like the thing is, I never realized with a lot of this DJ Academic thing, when this was going on with Chief Keef and Lil J, I don't know if you know who that is, Fredo Santana, Capo,
Capo,
all these dudes died, Trey Savage, like Blood Money.
Shout out and rest in peace though.
free Rondo, you know.
Free Rondo.
But like it's like
he killed a whole person.
I mean, yeah, allegedly. But like so they have 64th and Front Street, which is Parkway Gardens, which is where Chief Keef's from, Fredo's from. And then you have 63rd and Lawrence, which is Lil J, JoJo, who got killed when he was 17. Lil J, FBG Duck, who died recently, I think last year. He got shot in downtown Chicago. They literally were a block away. Like if you look on a map, it's like 64th, 63rd. They literally are within probably a 500 foot block radius of like each other. And it's like people, they're getting famous, you know, they're posting on their Twitter, they're posting like you said, geotagging Xbox or Instagram Live, like Xbox.
Like, yo, I'm posted up at the crib. They know where your crib is though. It's like, that's mad dangerous.
Right. Like, but like it's such a interesting thing because it's a mix of entertainment, you know, fame, and then the reality of these kids who are living in this environment who probably like weren't used to that amount of fame in such a short period of time, and like the gang violence meshed into that, and it's just like I think that's why DJ Academic's YouTube was so successful, is because it literally felt like a reality TV show, but it's their reality in a sense where it's so like everyone is so close to each other that it's like, yeah, no wonder people like someone is dying every other week, because it's like, okay, you kill someone, now you have a little bit more respect online, now people know your name, and that becomes the narrative. Is like, I think Polo G said it actually, he's like, I'm from where death, what do you say, he's like, I'm from where death is considered a hobby, or like death is considered something like that. Like, yeah. He like, your body count and being a killer and being a savage is what makes you a man and what gives you respect in Chicago. Yeah. And it's like, if you don't show that, then you're not going to get the respect. You're not going to be, you have to be legitimate to be there. And I think artists like G Herbo, who grew up there, are trying to move out of that lifestyle, but it's like, they're smart because they moved out of Chicago, but at the same time, it's like that still always follows them, you know. They still have to be careful where they go, and a lot of times, like Chief Keef, like he can't go back, because if he goes back, not only with the legal system, but there's so many people probably trying to kill him. It's like, no, he knows better. Like a third of his friends have died from going back there and getting shot on that block, you know.
Yeah, you can't even enjoy home, right? Like once you get it to a certain status. And to that point, man, I have a lot of experience with gang violence and stuff specifically, but you know, like for me, so I'll say this, because like this is I don't want like youngins to try to do this, because like I realize now as an adult that it was just stupid as kids to do it. But what we would do is, like where I grew up, there were so many different gangs that we ended up learning all the handshakes, and if someone came up to you and asked you what you were, in Chicago, everybody wears colors, right? So your colors, what you're wearing, can help indicate what gang you're in. So it's called false flagging when you're fucking out here shaking with dudes that aren't what they are, right? So like for us to do that was really dangerous, but at the same time, like you said, right? If you're those young kids, like I'm not talking 15, 16 either. Like that's young anyway, but I'm talking like, what do you do from 11 to 16, right? Like there's these dudes walking up to you. I've had 12-year-olds pull guns on me. I've had multiple 12-year-olds pull guns on me, right? So what do you do when the only people that you can look up to are the older brothers that are in the group, right? So like for me, I looked up to my friends' brothers, right? And they were gangbangers, and they were good people. There ain't nothing wrong with them. Like I don't know that they were necessarily killers, but to that point, in Chicago, you can't be a punk, and that's the one thing. Like people, like you know me personally, and anybody who knows me personally knows I'm not like a threat to society. Like I'm not about to like fucking hurt anybody or kill anybody. But with that being said, like again, like I'm not a killer, but don't push me. Like it isn't a joke, right? So like when people, like if you want to talk about squaring up, like where I'm from, like we'll just do it. It's not a game. Like I don't care who you are or how big you are. Like you have to fight. It's life or death. So like if you look at it like that, especially from a young age, right? If everything is life or death, then eventually these gangs, it's not that they're showing you love. We know there's no love. When you go to jail, that's the second you find out that there's no love, right? And I've told plenty of my friends that too, right? But again, at the same time, like for me, right, I was sent to live outside of Chicago because I had those problems, right? I was getting into fights at school in the fucking bathroom, right? Security guards were letting people in to fight me in the bathroom. Or even like one time I was with my friends, right? And there was about 30 of us, maybe 35 of us. And there were cops outside of the school. It was at Thomas Kelly High School when the school was still on probation for violence, essentially. And what ended up happening was these dudes that were BLs, which this isn't gang necessarily, but in Chicago we have crews, and crews are a big deal. So we had like these BLs are from the neighborhood, are from Brighton Park where the school is. And then like where I grew up is Brighton Park, but it's the McKinley Park neighborhood. So what happens is there's a viaduct that separates those two different neighborhoods. And so like my friends grew up in 35th, right? So they're 35th Street boys. So there's like TDM, TMC, and a couple other different crews within the 35th branch, right? But those are my friends, right? So I went to a college prep my freshman year on the north side, and I couldn't afford it. And then I moved back to go to the public school where we lived. And so I didn't really realize in that transition to that year, right, that like all my friends became gangbangers. That's just what it was. I didn't really realize because I was removed. And And what ended up happening was I walked out of school. It was probably like the third day, maybe. We walked out of school, and this dude just like walked up to me and like punched me in the back of the head. Like, dude, I wasn't even involved. I was just like walking with my friends, and you've heard the story, but like I ended up like I was caught off guard. So like first of all, I hurt like a bitch. I got punched in the back of my skull, and so I like turned around and pushed the kid in the street, and a Suburban came by and hit him. And I was like, I'm out. I did not check. I have no idea what happened to that kid. Never seen him again. But what I do know is I got on the bus immediately and took my ass home, and I never walked with my friends again outside right over there, because like it was just too dangerous. Like it got to the point where like I'm not trying to like make myself look a certain way, but I was seeing like a couple different girls, and they were living in that neighborhood. And bro, like it's not funny. It's kind of fucked up. Like I remember I had to run home. Like by any means necessary. No, I'm kidding. I was just fucking with you. But now I had to walk home at night, right? Because I'm trying to hang out with these girls, and there are so many gangbangers, and like, dude, I look distinct in Chicago because I'm not like outwardly Mexican. I look like a white kid to them. So like to them, I'm just a fucking white boy, and I would be hanging out over there by those girls' houses, and they lived about 2 blocks from each other, but they lived in like BL and SD neighborhoods and shit. So there's like, and my brother was fucking, I'm not gonna say what he was in, but he was in a different crew that was not getting along with either of the neighborhood crews that we live near. So I had shit to look out for. They thought I was like on some bullshit all the time. I was like, bro, I'm just like out here trying to get at these girls. They didn't really respect it because they were upset that I was in the wrong neighborhood, but it made life more exciting running home at 10 o'clock at night because you didn't want to get shot. You heard that a lot of times there were gunshots where I was because of the neighborhood, but just some crazy shit. Like right by schools and shit. It's like shooting at night out at a playground. I was like, God damn, y'all are tripping.
Yeah, it's the Wild West.
Yeah, no, it can be for real, but no, man, it is dangerous. But and like to your point, like when you leave and come back, it's a very different place. But it's the more that changes, the more that stays the same. And I really have learned a lot about that saying, as cliche as it sounds, as a young man, because again, when I go home, like my family still is in poverty, dude. It's not sweet yet. Like we're still fighting for what we're trying to do. That's why we started a business. That's why I'm trying to, do some stuff in the cannabis scene. Just trying to bring back empowerment. Business. Yeah, thank you. Shout out Experience Costa Rica, Experience CR Guanacaste LLC. Link below. Shout out to Empress and Bandit Greenery.
Yeah. If you ever go to Costa Rica, click the link below.
Yes, please.
Great hotels, great resorts, great experiences.
Yeah. Absolutely. Great people, man. Just like I don't even, if you don't go to Costa Rica for anything else, for real, you gotta go for the people, man. They're just beautiful. They're so kind, and like it's just different when you're in another country, like especially Latin America, man. Like how about it? Like Puerto Rico, like just different. People are different. They're not as like guarded as they are here. I feel like everybody here is like got a fucking chip on their shoulder. I'm like, I get it, you gotta hustle, but damn, bro, you need to make some friends. You gotta network a little bit.
Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Thank you guys for spending the time. I don't know if you guys watched all of this. If you did, thank you. If you didn't, you wouldn't be hearing this right now.
What does he say? What's his name?
Can
my
you
God.
That?
What's his name in the morning? Sway.
Oh, Sway. I thought you were talking about Booker T.
Say some stuff under his breath. He's like, you punk ass rappers.
Yeah.
you let him do something he's doing for a pastime. I'll rap you. Thank you for having me again. And yeah, like Dan said, thank you for everybody who stayed this long. So probably like Zach and a couple other people. But no. Thank you for real, man. It's good to talk like this. And anybody who's ever looking for a podcast or a dialogue, I think hit up Dan or hit up me or, anybody within our network. And I think we'd be down to do something like that. So.
For sure.
The good die young, and yo, that shit is real. And I'm repping your name, and it's so surreal. Yo, the shit hurts, and it's very fucking real, man. The shit hurts, cause it's so surreal. Damn, man, it's so surreal. Man, it's so surreal. The good die young, and yo, that shit is real. And I'm repping your name, and it's so surreal.
I'm hard on myself because I know what it can be. A war mentality with these demons inside of me. See it in my eyes, man, I've been through a lot. No, I've never been shot, but I always keep watch for these cops with the Glock, trying to make my heart stop. My friends posted on the block, fiends looking for rocks, but I never